Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's video tutorial. In this week's tutorial, I will cover the first part of chapter 5 of Grandmaster Ronghhua's Sandwich Horse Treatise. As mentioned earlier in my other videos, I've deliberately chosen to put the board with black at the bottom so that friends or viewers who are interested in the opening or the sandwich horse counter as black can have a better visual appreciation. So without further ado, the sandwich horse defense. Again, in chapter 5, red would still choose to attack with p3 plus 1, and black would counter with p3 plus 1, the edge horse. And this would be the main difference in chapter 5 as compared with the earlier boards. In the earlier boards, instead of e7 plus 5, where the left elephant would be advanced, in this board, in the previous boards, e3 plus 5 was played. e3 plus 5 is known as the right elephant variation of the sandwich horse defense, while the e7 plus 5 would be known as the left elephant variation of the sandwich horse defense. Moving a different elephant would open up a whole new situation, and this is one of the more popular variations that you can see now in competitions. So red would continue with the 5-6 cannons. Black would develop his right chariot as a foul chariot, and red would choose to develop his chariot as a foul chariot in this situation. The situation shown here would be the topic of discussion for this chapter. So at this point in time, after r9 equals to 8, there were two variations that were discussed by the Grandmaster in his book. The first variation will be a6 plus 5, and the second variation will be c2 plus 4. Again, we shall go through the variations one by one. So black had chosen to fortify his defense and played a6 plus 5. So red would continue with r8 plus 4. Now, because this chariot was given some room to develop, black could not play c2 plus 4 as will be shown in the other variation. So what would this have, what implications would this have for the opening system? We shall see. So after r8 plus 4, black would play p1 plus 1 to limit the development of the edge horse. In actual play, p9 plus 1 has also been tried, whereby black would try to push the pawn again to trade pawns and then maneuver his chariot to the cross riverbank rank. Now, one of the lines shown in the book by the Grandmaster was red would push the edge pawn himself so that development of the edge horse would be possible. So at this point, red would attack the left horse very aggressively, and red would still have a slight advantage. If after p9 plus 1, red chose to play r2 plus 6, the following will be a possible variation. Black would push his cannon forward and threaten to push p7 plus 1. That is why the red chariot would have to move away, or the cannon would be attacking the red chariot. So p7 plus 1 would still be played, and instead of using the elephant, black could play e7 plus 9 to threaten to capture the red chariot and the red pawn. So at this point in time, red would have wasted several moves. So as can be seen, when the horse is at this position, it is called the tiger-headed horse, or hu tou ma in Chinese. Hu would be the Chinese for tiger, tou would be the Chinese for head, and ma would be the Chinese for horse. So I've chosen to translate this as the tiger-headed horse in my lexicon. When the horse is at this position, it would only take 2 moves to get to the elbow horse by h7 plus 8 followed by h8 plus 7, or h7 plus 6 followed by h6 plus 7. The pawn, central pawn, will also be protected, and more often than not, red would have trouble trying to secure this intersection on the board if the horse were positioned here. So once the horse reaches this position, it is a very powerful entity, and a lot of variations, opening systems, especially in the central cannon advancement, variations against the central against the screen horse defense, black would often try to get a tiger-headed horse so that it will be beneficial for further development of his position. So at this point in time, red would have wasted several moves trying to position his chariot, and black would have seized the initiative away from red. So that is why p9 plus 1 is seldom seen nowadays. Instead, black would push p1 plus 1. So because just a short review, because if p9 plus 1 were played, red would play p9 plus 1 also, and red would be better in the opening ahead. So after pushing p1 plus 1 to prevent red from playing p9 plus 1, the pale corner horse, red's pale corner cannon, will now start to cause mischief. So with c6 plus 4, it would attack black's cannon pawn rank, and at this point, two further sub-variations were discussed. The first sub-variation would be p7 plus 1. So since the cannon was prepared to attack the pawn, black would decide to trade pawns. Another variation would be c2 plus 1. So if the cannon captured the pawn, black would take revenge, and it would be a trade of chariots. But after moving the black cannon to this position, the black cannon would now place much pressure on this file for red. So a possible line would be red would not want to choose to capture the pawn as mentioned, and black would choose to offer a trade of chariots, and at this point in time, red will be slightly better because black's central pawn will be under attack. If the horse were to move, there will be other methods for red to attack. So at this point in time, red will be slightly better. Hence, p7 plus 1 was later found to be a better option, and after trading pawns, the red's cannon would still apply pressure on black's on black's third file, taking aim at the elephant. So this would also limit the development of the black horse. So usually black would continue to play e3 plus 5 to link his elephants up in this manner, and red would charge forward, charge his horse forward to attack. So it would seem natural for black to play h7 plus 6, but if black did do so, red would continue with r2 plus 6 to attack the horse again. So at this point, two variations were further discussed. The first would be black capturing the red horse, and the second would be c2 plus 2 to protect the black horse on the riverbank. So if c2 plus 2 were played, red continue with his plans with r2 equals to 4 to traverse the red chariot to the red file, and red would be prepared to play p7 plus 1, because once the pawn is pushed, black would be in a dilemma. So no matter if black accepted, he will lose a major piece. If he did not, his formation would be further weakened. Hence, c6 plus 3 was later advocated, but it would still not be a very ideal option, because red would capture the cannon and still threaten to capture the black horse. So at this point in time, again, if c2 plus 2 were played, red would continue with p7 plus 1, and as can be seen, the development of the black pieces would be limited and cramped, and red would have more space for further development of all his pieces, including the edge horse. So red would be considered to be superior in this situation, and the main reason for this would be, let's go back to the situation that was discussed. The main reason for this was because black played a6 plus 5, and black would have used up a move, one or two moves, just to solidify his central file, and this would give the red chariot much room to move, to maneuver, and to add pressure on black's formation. So in variation 1, a6 plus 5 was played, which is seldom seen nowadays because black's formation would become cramped. Hence, modern day opening theory would advocate that black push his other cannon forward once red would play r9 equals to 8. So if r9 equals to a played, black would often play c2 plus 4, and this will lead to several complicated situations. How should red treat this cannon? Because it will be ready to capture the central pawn. So the first variation that was discussed was h9 minus 7. As mentioned earlier, this was a very aggressive variation by black. So after retreating the horse, red will be prepared to capture the black cannon. So this is one of the more commonly played variations. Another variation would be to play a4 plus 5, which was discussed in the book. However, if a4 plus 5 were played, red would choose to trade chariots, and after the chariot exchange, black would have much more space to move his pieces, to move and maneuver and develop his pieces. And as can be seen, red's left flank will still be cramped, and he will still have trouble trying to develop his chariot and horse, and the pale corner cannon will still not be able to see much action. So instead of a4 plus 5, r9 minus 7 has been advocated. So one might wonder, would it be a dangerous move, because black could be prepared to capture the central pawn? So in this situation, three sub-variations were discussed. The first would be black retreating the cannon. The second would be black advancing the cannon, and the last but not least, if black chose to capture the central pawn, red would simply capture the central pawn, and black could be in a dilemma, because if he captured the black chariot, black, after trading the chariots, red would gain a central cannon for free, which would be retreated, and the black cannon would be forced away. So this would not be the ideal situation. In the second variation that was discussed, c2 plus 2 was studied. So we shall go back to the first variation. If c2 minus 1 were played, what would happen? The following would be the line that was given in the book. So red would continue with h3 plus 4, a6 plus 5. Red would charge his horse across the river, and black would retreat his cannon to threaten the horse again. And because of the presence of the pell corner cannon, black would continue in a variation that was similar to the main line, or in the first variation that was shown just now. So after c6 plus 4, 9 equals to 8, check, trade of the material, and red would still be able to develop his left chariot, which would be a critical factor in this situation. Moreover, red would have a pawn advantage and a menacing horse and cannon already in place, ready to do damage. So in this situation, red would have a significant advantage. Hence, let us go back to the situation that was discussed. Hence, after retreating the horse, it would not be a good idea for black to retreat his cannon c2 minus 1. Okay, and it would also be an even worse idea to capture the central pawn, because red would capture the central pawn. So the Grandmaster would advocate playing c2 plus 2 instead. So in this situation, black would be using two pieces, his cannon and chariot, to form something of a blockade on red's left flank. And this would perhaps be the best subvariation for the first board in chapter 5. So once this is played, red would often attack from the central file, and when the position shown here is reached, there will be another 3 subvariations that were discussed. Red would usually choose to play h3 plus 4, p5 plus 1, and h7 plus 6. So in the first subvariation, h3 plus 4 was discussed. In the second, p5 plus 1, and the third, h7 plus 6. All 3 of these subvariations were rather complicated, and there were even more sub-variations. So after h3 plus 4 in this first subvariation, black would retreat his cannon to attack the horse. So at this point in time, what should red do? Should red attack the pawn here, or should red attack the central pawn? So in the first subvariation, h4 plus 5 was played. So if h4 plus 5 were played, black would capture the offending horse, and red would take revenge, and black would suddenly play c6 plus 4. Well, this would be a discovered attack, whereby the black horse would now threaten to capture the red cannon, and if red decided to move his black would, if red attacked the cannon in this manner, black would simply play c6 plus 1 to attack the red chariot again, and black would have gained the initiative, because the black cannon would now be prepared to play c1 minus 1 to attack the central pawn, and red central cannon will be in grave danger. So after h4 plus 5, what would happen if p3 plus 1 were played? This would be another viable option, whereby black would immediately start attacking the central pawn, and black could also choose to sacrifice his horse, but this would not be a real sacrifice, because after capturing the central pawn, the black chariot would capture the red chariot, as this would be a check. So let's say red decided to capture the horse, check, counter check, trade off chariots, p7 plus 1, and black would retreat his elephant. This move would make way for the threat of a double cannons checkmate, and at this point in time black would also have the initiative. So h4 plus 5 would not be an ideal option for red. So what about h4 plus 3? So if h4 plus 3 were played, black will continue attacking the central pawn, and instead of capturing the central pawn, which would not be a good idea, as red could play h7 minus 5 and threaten to checkmate with the pale corner horse after capturing the pale corner cannon. Because if p5 were played, a review, black would charge his pawn forward and still be prepared to deliver a discovered check and capture the red chariot. So that was why black would move an advisor to the central file, and black would gain both material and positional advantage, because at this point in time the red cannon cannot capture the pawn, because the black's c2 plus 5 threat would be ever present. So that is why black would have a significant advantage in this situation. So we shall retract our moves a little bit. So after a6 plus 5, as mentioned earlier, the first attacking option for red would be h3 plus 4. The second option for red would be to charge the central pawn forward, and this would be another complicated situation. So once the central pawn was charged forward, black would capture it, and red would attempt to block the elephant's eye so that red could attack with c5 plus 5. The central pawn that red had sacrificed would have been made for this play to happen, and however, although it would be a proactive approach, this this plan could be easily foiled by black's h3 plus 4. So the red cannons would still be unable to capture the black elephant, and let's say if red continued with r2 plus 3 to prevent the red horse from crossing the river, black would jump at the opportunity to retreat his cannon, and again black would be prepared to play c2 equals to 5 to deliver a check and capture the red chariot. So in view of this threat, if red played a4 plus 5, black would offer a trade of chariots, which more often than not red would not accept, and would play r2 equals to 6, and at this point black would protect his horse in this manner: r6 plus 1, p3 plus 1, and h8 plus 6. And at this point in time, black would have controlled the more important lines in this situation, and the cannon will still be protected by the horse and will not be afraid of the two red chariots, while again red's left chariot will still be trapped in will still have trouble developing. So the horse cannot advance because of the presence of the black chariot. So we shall retract our moves a little bit. After, if red chose to push his central pawn forward, black could play h3 plus 4 to protect the elephant, and if red played r2 plus 3 to consolidate his pawn rank, black would jump at the opportunity to play c2 minus 3. So in the variation discussed just now, a4 plus 5 was played, and what would happen if a6 plus 5 were played? If a6 plus 5 were played, black would simply push his pawn forward, and black would have an even greater advantage at this point in time. So going back to the situation where there were 3 variations, a little revision. At this point in time, the first variation that was discussed was h3 plus 4, the second was p5 plus 1, whereby black would seem to have the upper hand in these 2 situations. The third subvariation, the third and last final subvariation, would be for red to push to charge his horse forward, because in the previous 2 variations the horse would still not be developed. And what would happen if red did so? Before we continue, red will have the advantage of be prepared to charge his central pawn forward and trade pawns. So what should black do in this situation? c6 plus 4, a very subtle but very powerful move. So if c6 plus 4 was played, red would attack the horse, and there were 2 variations that were discussed. The first of which would be c9 plus 7, c9 equals to 7, traversing the black chariot to protect the black horse. Another would be c6 plus 7. So if c6 plus 7 were played, and to attack the elephant, red would protect his elephant in this manner, and continue to protect the black horse, and still protect the central file and the horse and cannon. And c2 minus 2 would be played, whereby black would form a blockade on red's pawn rank. It would not be a good idea to play h3 plus 4 at this point, because red would now be prepared to attack the cannon. And red would be sure to gain material. The chariot cannot move, or it will be a smothered cannon checkmate with the rear cannon capturing the red elephant. So h3 plus 4 would be a brash move in this situation. Instead, c2 minus 2 will be a slow but steady approach for black to gain the advantage in terms of material and position. So c6 plus 7 would be okay. If e3 plus 1 were played, instead of using the horse to protect the elephant, red would actually sacrifice his horse, and this would be a discovered attack, because red would have to trade chariots or lose his chariot, but this would allow black to be able to concentrate 2 cannons and 1 chariot on red's right flank, and it would be a very worthwhile sacrifice for black, as red would have trouble trying to slow or halt black's attack at this flank. So that is why e3 plus 1 would not be a good idea. And we shall retract our moves a little bit. h7 plus 6, c6 plus 4, r2 plus 7, and this would be the better move as suggested or a viable option for black. So at this point there were three final sub variations that were discussed. The first would be h6 plus 4. The second would be p5 plus 1, which would not be a good idea, because if p5 plus 1 were played, black would simply retreat his cannon and the black horse would have trouble moving. So wherever it went, c6 plus 5 would now become a possibility for black. Even if red played h6 plus 4, red would be prepared to play c6 plus 5, because red would not dare to capture the black cannon, or he would lose his chariot. So c2 minus 2 will be played, and red would be in deep trouble. So, and the last variation would be h6 minus 4. If this were the case, we can see that red's cannon rank would now be very cramped, and black would simply play h3 plus 4 to attack. And this horse would be a very powerful piece, because there would not be many pieces that were impeding or slowing it down. And at this point, the left chariot would still be immovable, and this horse, the red horse, would have trouble moving. So black would have an easy time ahead going into the mid game. So if h6 plus 4 were played, c6 equals to 7 to attack the elephant will be done, and again black will be prepared to play h7 r7 equals to 6 to attack, to threaten the red's riverbank horse. Black will still have a very playable game in this situation. So in case you are lost by now, we shall retract our moves a little bit and go back to the initial stages of the board. And this would be the position of discussion: the left elephant variation of the sandwich horse defense versus red's 5-6 cannons with edge horse and third pawn advancement. And at this point in time, black must be aggressive and cannot play a6 plus 5. Instead, c2 plus 4 will be advocated. And after playing c2 plus 4, r9 minus 7 will be advocated to threaten the cannon, the black cannon. So at this point in time, three major variations were discussed: c2 minus 1, c2 plus 2, and c2 equals to 5. And among these three variations, c2 minus 1 would lead to this situation whereby red will be better, but c2 plus 2 will be the ideal move for black at this point. So this will lead to several complicated variations as shown just now, but black would be able to get a very decent position going into the mid game. So I hope you have enjoyed today's video, and please do slow or repeat the video as necessary to try to memorize the moves given. I still have trouble memorizing the moves now because I'm getting old, but it's a very practical situation, especially in complicated situations like this when playing in tournaments or actual games. So I hope you have enjoyed this week's video tutorial, and I hope to be able to do more in the near future. And I thank you for your support, and if you like my channel or the work that I have done, please give me a like on YouTube and also on my Facebook page. I also have a Twitter account, and please give me some support or feedback wherever possible, because one of the biggest aims that I have would be to spread Xiangqi to the English speaking world. And I thank you again. Have a nice day.